going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Hills Are Silent podcast, where we like to stab you in the stomach and slice your gut open and let your intestines fall to the ground. And on top of that, we also like to chop it up about the games of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Last episode, we covered the top 3 games we played in 2023 and the top 3 games that also released in 2023 that we still wanted to play. So we're going to continue on with that. Just a reminder, we're always hyped about games that are yet to come out, but we can't forget that so many games get released every year. Stuff we got to play and maybe stuff we wanted to play but forgot about. So, this is a reflective moment. What did you enjoy in each year when it comes to video game releases, and what do you need to go back to and play? So Mitch, without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to you so you can let me know about the first game on your list of the top 3 games you played that were released in 2022, because we're going backwards in time now.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a list of games Mitch has curated unless I include a Japanese RPG. And of course, the number one on my list for 2022 is a Japanese-inspired JRPG, which is called Chained Echoes. And I have talked about Chained Echoes on the podcast before, but I want to sing its praises again because honestly, it's super impressive. It is created by Matthias Linda. It is a one-person developed game, which is just incredibly impressive in its own right. He grew up a fan making games with RPG Maker, which is, a really cool story that he's, his favorite games that are heavily inspired by Chained Echoes include stuff like Xenogears, Secrets of Mana, Legend of the Dragoon, and then Final Fantasy VI. It features a lot of pixel art visuals that are just completely beautiful, and I love playing games that have that retro style 16-bit era type feel to it. And of course, it does have the RPG turn-based combat, which I also love, and it is a very chill, relaxing time when I get to play games with that turn-based combat. But essentially, the story, though, is really cool. It's a multi-generational war between 3 kingdoms. It's got a fantastic story and great dialogue, funny characters, people that you can really, connect with throughout the journey of this multi-generational war. So it is a little bit different, though. I know it is actually quite a long game. I want to say I can't exactly remember how many hours I sunk into. It's at least 30 hours, I'm going to say. I mean, that's the typical, standard, the minimum for Japanese.
The minimum. Emphasis on that.
But it does have some cool, different takes on it. So, unlike other role-playing games, you don't have to stress about, grinding and leveling up. Basically, as you move along in the story, your characters automatically level, which is a cool thing. I don't always have. Sometimes it's tough for me to go back and grind a bunch so I can continue the story and actually beat that boss and get over that hump. Sometimes it really impedes on the progress or the flow of the game, and it makes me sometimes not want to go back to it for a little bit. So I like that it was a really good flow with moving through the story. I did enjoy that. They have an optional skill tree that you can do for doing a lot of the side content or completing challenges of killing a certain amount of enemies or stuff that can give you unlocks throughout the way as well, which I thought was a cool optional thing that I definitely took advantage of because it did make the run or the going through the story a little easier. So yeah, just some cool different concepts as well. Battles are of course turn-based, and you control each player in the party. But there is also some differences in the battling system. They have what they call an overheat or an overdrive meter, where basically if you use too many of the skills that you have, you can overheat. And if you overheat, that means you're going to take more incoming damage. So you have to balance certain skills that bring down your overdrive meter, but also keep it up high enough so you're doing enough damage. There's a little middle green section, and then there's a red section, and I think it's a blue section at the other side. So you have to make sure you stay in between in that green area while you're doing this turn-based attacking. So a cool little spin. And just another thing that kept it fresh was while you do turn-based combat as just your human form, just you and your party members, but you also eventually get in these big giant mechs, and it's an entirely different style of turn-based combat using different moves and collecting different items that you can equip to these mechs to make, just a cool different spin of not only just using the characters but also using them in their mech form or them inside their mechs, which was pretty awesome. But yeah, that is Chained Echoes. I mean, honestly, like it's a beautiful JRPG. It's super impressive from one guy that that put this together. I got to play it luckily on Game Pass, which is how I figured out it existed in the first place. So shout out to Game Pass as always. But I definitely would pay and support this developer. And I mean, if they put a limited physical release out, a little limited run games action, something like that, I would definitely support that that backing for sure. Yeah, great game. But that is Chained Echoes. Definitely, if you're interested in the genre, I would highly recommend playing.
Nice. All right, man. For me, it is Quake Champions. Now, technically, I played this game before 2022 because it was an early access game. Actually, I think I played this, maybe for the first time in 2019. I don't remember when the early access started, but it officially released in 2022. And it is a free-to-play game, and I very, very rarely play free-to-play games. But this one, it's pretty full-featured, even if you don't want to drop any cash. But yeah, it's just nice to see the Quake arena-style competitive shooter live on. Because I definitely played Quake 3 Team Arena, and I've played Quake 1 and Quake 2. I never played the competitive multiplayer on Quake 1 or Quake 2, but I definitely jumped in by the time Quake 3 came around. And I was also a huge fan of Unreal Tournament, the many Unreal Tournament games they came out with. So it's just a nice throwback to that reflex shooter where you're just running around crazy fast and just picking up weapons, and it's just chaos. And admittedly, I could only play this game in short bursts because it's just so intense. And there's just no break. Like, you blink and you're dead. And that's pretty much it. And there's people that are just amazing at these arena shooters that just have that twitch kill skill that I unfortunately just don't have. But I still had a ton of fun with this game. I liked that they had reimaginings of the Quake guy. And if I remember correctly, they had BJ Blazkowicz or whatever his name is from Wolfenstein as a playable character.
That's cool.
I played as him. But yeah, man, it's it's a simple arena shooter, skill based, and I just don't think that enough people play this game. I know the community has really shrunk, even though it was officially released not all that long ago. But if you liked any of those old games, Unreal Tournament, Quake, or anything along those lines, definitely check out Quake Champions. All right, man, what's up next for you?
Yeah, I'm switching genres completely. I feel like we're doing a good job of really covering a lot of genres of games here. We've gone from Japanese RPG to a fast-paced first-person shooter, and now we're going to an interactive drama horror game developed by Supermassive Games, and that is The Quarry. And The Quarry is a game where you control 9 teenage counselors who must survive their night at Hackett's Quarry summer camp while they're trying to fend off supernatural creatures. And these games by Supermassive are fantastic, and I love them all. In this one specifically, players make choices throughout the game which significantly affect your character development, your relationships, the story's plot, the ending. Every one of the players may survive, or they may all die, or it's anything in between. It depends on the choices that you make, which I think is the coolest concept of games when that started coming out. My first one being introduced with the Walking Dead Telltale series, of course, a classic. So yeah, like one of my favorite types of games because they are just very relaxing types, and they're even great. They're a lot of the time they're like single player. They're like single player, make your choices, but they can be great in groups where you just have some buddies all over and you start it up and you all work together to make certain decisions that impact the game, and you kind of frame the story together. And even some of these types of games that have been coming out lately have actually implemented some co-op aspects into it. So I think the Quarry might have some couch co-op aspect into it, but I'm not quite certain. I didn't delve into that. It was envisioned as a spiritual successor to one of my favorite games in this franchise, Until Dawn, with Rami Malek, one of my favorite actors. Is in Until Dawn, but and they have a great cast of actors and actresses in the Quarry as well, which I always think is cool to see who is in these games that I'm familiar with.
Yeah, I do appreciate that they have real actors portraying these characters. And I definitely recognize some of them just looking at this trailer.
Yeah, there was one, not the Quarry itself, but it was one of the Dark Pictures anthology games, had Ashley Tisdale in it. And I know Ashley Tisdale from like Disney Channel back in the day. So it was very weird to see her like in this like super serious horror game. So yeah, just interesting who they get in some of these games. So while it was inspired by, it was a spiritual successor to Until Dawn, it's also inspired by teen slasher and monster films such as Friday the 13th and The Thing, which makes total sense with especially with Friday the 13th and the whole camp counselor, scene on with supernatural or monsters coming out and trying to kill all these teenagers. It makes complete sense. But yeah, the one thing that's really cool about it that they did really hammer home when this game was coming out, it has branching storylines, as I've said. Like it can branch off based on the decisions you make throughout the game. But they say that it has 186 different endings.
Wow,
which that's pretty impressive. It makes me actually do want to go back and maybe play it again sometime just to see what I could have done differently. It's been long enough too since I played it. I think I would have a fresh experience on it. But yeah, that is the Quarry. I think it's a great game to play on your own. Play it late at night. Play it with friends in a group and help make choices together. Play it with like a spouse who doesn't really like games but likes watching movies or TV shows, because it is really in its own right like an interactive movie. So a fantastic game, super massive, always killing it. Can't wait to play more of their stuff.
Yeah, so coincidentally, Ted Raimi is in the Quarry, and his brother, Sam Raimi, directed the movie that the next game I'm about to talk about is made from, and that is Evil Dead the game. Now, this is another one of those asymmetrical survival kind of like multiplayer games that have become really popular lately. We've seen the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We've seen Friday the 13th. There's what's the Dead by Daylight.
Dead by Daylight. Mm-hmm.
And they're about to come out with the Killer Clowns from Outer Space one, which
really
seems pretty interesting. Did you ever see that movie?
I did not see the movie, and I didn't know they were making a game for it.
Yeah, I highly recommend that movie if you've never seen it. It's a 80s horror film, but it's also kind of like a comedy, but it is unlike anything else. But anyway, back to the Evil Dead, the game. So I've been a huge Evil Dead fan ever since I was a kid. I mean, I've seen all the movies, watched the TV show, played all the old games, which were varying in quality. I remember the very first game I was so hyped for, and I think I either played it on PlayStation 1 or Sega Dreamcast, and I was pretty disappointed in it. The intro movie was so cool and got me all psyched up, and then once they give you control of Ash, the game just kind of fell apart after that. And my biggest issue with it was the never-ending respawning enemies, and I cannot stand that in games. It was just, the game was difficult enough as it was, but you couldn't even stop to think, to try to be like, all right, where do I need to go next? I need to check the map. How do I solve this puzzle? Because you're just constantly being onslaughted by the exact same enemy, just respawning over and over again. But fast forward to today, and video games have come a long way, and an Evil Dead game, or this Evil Dead game, I think got the budget it deserved. It got the studio it deserved to work on it, and it's just truly just a game of passion from like true fans. Like, so much fan service in this. It's got all the characters across all the movies, very extensive unlocked trees for all different types of abilities, so the game has tons of depth.
You know me as
And it's also just much better playing a game like this co-op. Like, why not? And when I played this, I hopped in this game much later than when it was released, but I struggled finding matches because nobody really wants to play as the monster or the evil force. Everybody seems to just want to play as the survivors. So against my will, I had to play as the evil force more times than I probably would have liked. But other than that, I had a good time. I would definitely jump in this game again. It's definitely pretty deep with the strategy on both how to work together to survive and how to kill the survivors when you're playing as the evil force. So have you played this, Mitch?
I have. I played my fair share, but I think got it like very soon after it released because actually good buddy of the pod, Drewby, cousin Drewby, he is also a big Evil Dead fan, and he convinced me to play the game. And honestly, it's really hard being a survivor in that game. I feel like the evil force like wins more often than not. Like it's pretty, at least the games that we were playing as like friends together, it was tough for us to survive or even get to the final, the final point where you can survive. But a lot of fun though. Yeah, a lot of teamwork, a lot of fun, a cool spin, a different spin on it than a lot of these other games like, Friday the 13th or Dead by Daylight. Yeah, I wish that I wish it still had a big player base, but I think it has dwindled.
Yeah, and I didn't pick up the game until it was released on PlayStation Plus as a free monthly game. And I don't think it was that long after it was released that it was given away as a free game on PlayStation Plus.
Yeah, which kind of speaks to what, to probably the player base going down.
Yeah, unfortunately. Anyway, moving on. What you got next, Mitch?
Yep, my last one, I've also touched on this on the pod before, but it is also a good refresher to come back to because I do have some thoughts on it as well. But it is a game I am still playing to this day, Marvel Snap, which is a digital collectible card game developed by Second Dinner that is, of course, centered around the Marvel Universe. And Ben Brode is the founder of Second Dinner Studio, and he was actually the game director and the public face of one of literally my favorite card game, Hearthstone, until 2018. So I guess it makes sense why I've gravitated a lot towards Marvel Snap, because it there is somebody who worked on Hearthstone for a long time in charge of it. But you can play on PC and your phone, which is fantastic. I love being able to do both. If I'm chilling on the couch watching the Cubs game or something, I can flip it up on my phone and play a couple quick games. Super fast-paced games, unlike other card games. At max, those games last like 7 or 8 minutes at most, which is good. It's nice. You can just hammer out a bunch of games really quickly. The main premise of the game, there are a deck of 12 cards, each with specific Marvel characters, with cost, power level, and potentially a special ability of some sort. The goal with these cards is to win 2 of the 3 locations that you are placing these cards down into. And each location has their own unique effect that you kind of have to maneuver your way around. Some could benefit you, some are negative, you never know. So it kind of brings like a different spin on each game, and whoever has the highest power level on 2 of the 3 locations wins the match. So it's a pretty cool thing. You can also, if you feel confident, like in the middle of the match that you're going to win, you can do what is called snapping, and you hit a button, and it makes this whole loud snap sound, which is kind of funny. And basically, it's you telling your opponent that, or you could be bluffing for that matter, but you're telling your opponent that you're confident in that, if you win more of what they call cubes, which is basically how you level your rank up in the game. So it's kind of a risk-reward scenario. If you snap and you don't win, you lose that amount of cubes, but if you snap and you win, you gain. And if you both snap together, it doubles that. So it is like a risk and reward scenario there. So it can get pretty dicey. As far as that, like outside of the game, like the concept of the game itself and the gameplay is awesome. They also have some cool stuff, like obviously in the Marvel verse and it's very popular these days, variants are very popular, of course, with like the Loki TV show coming out, and Doctor Strange and all the stuff that is created in the multiverse and whatnot. But they have variants in Marvel Snap, which are basically just optional cosmetics that you use throughout. You know, you could actually have when somebody, like, for instance, or like a pixel Doctor Strange or some Doctor Strange from a different, you know, timeline. And it's all optional cosmetic stuff, but it's kind of cool to see other people's that they've gotten or like acquired or purchased with the currency. Yeah, pretty enjoyable.
Nice.
The only gripe that I have that I was talking to you off the pod, Mike, was it is kind of become, it was a cash grab from the beginning, which a lot of these free to play card games are. I totally understand that. But while the battle pass seems to have reasonable rewards, it's only like $9.99. They do have a lot of bundles that they really push to like try to get you to purchase that are just, they do not seem like great values to me. And it's like not only me saying that, I've definitely heard that from content creators who play the game a lot more than I do. That they really have like a lot of these bundles that as the game has gone on, it's been less and less worth it because of, you know, what you're getting versus, you know, what is in this bundle and what you have to pay for. So I feel like as the game has gotten more popular, like, well, we can maybe like start like not giving as much to the player, you know, as we go along, which is kind of sad because, you know, I think some of the cosmetic stuff in the bundles that you can buy and to be able to have all the cards at your arsenal to use, because you have to like play the game to make sure you unlock all the cards, is important. And, you know, I don't want to fork out a whole bunch of money. You know, I will give some money to card games, no problem, but just not as much as it seems like they're asking for.
Yeah.
But overall, it is still one of my top games of 2022 that I still play. I love card games. It's a great one. I work it in rotation with Hearthstone, which means a lot. If you love card games, play it.
All right, man. Last up for me is another one we've talked about plenty of times on the podcast, so not going to spend too much time on it because we've beat this game to death, but Signalis, which is a survival horror game, very much inspired by a lot of the classics like Silent Hill and Resident Evil. It has a very deep, mysterious story to it, and it's got a pixelated, almost PlayStation 1 style art direction. And of course, you've got your inventory management and your puzzles, your exploration. You never quite have enough ammo to ever feel safe in the game. It's very dark and foreboding. And if anybody's just a fan of classic survival horror games, definitely check this one out. I played it on Game Pass from your recommendation. I beat it, very much enjoyed it. And usually when I enjoy a game that much, I definitely want to have a physical copy of it. And fortunately, a physical edition was released through, I believe, Humble Games. And it looks like that's also the publisher of the digital version as well. But yeah, man, definitely a great game. Very emotional game that never quite tells you everything, but you just feel it. You just feel that there's more to this story than what is explained. And it's another one that, like Chained Echoes, had a very small development team. If I remember correctly, the developer Rose Engine just consisted of 2 people working on this game.
Yeah, I was going to mention it. Glad you brought it up. Yeah, 2 people, I believe.
Yeah, very impressive. And I very much like that. Not only does it have an old art style, but it gives you plenty of graphical options to even crunch it down to more old school style. Like you can lower the resolution down and add some CRT tube TV scan lines to it to really get the sense that you're playing some lost PlayStation 1 game that was never released or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fantastic.
All right, man, so that's the top 3 games for each of us that we played that were released in 2022. Now let's move along to what we still have yet to play that was released in 2022. Mitch, I'll let you jump it off first.
Yeah, I'll start by saying this one is a game that I do not normally play. I mean, but it's gotten so much praise that it's one that I really need to try, and I actually did purchase it recently digitally because it was on sale for pretty cheap, for as low as I've seen it, because this game is so popular it never goes on sale very low. This one is called Sifu. And Sifu is a realistic third-person brawler with tight kung fu combat mechanics and cinematic martial arts, which I think is a mouthful, but it does really describe what it is. It's inspired by Bak Mei Kung Fu, which is said to be, I guess Bak Mei is one of the legendary 5 elders, survivors of the destruction of the Shaolin Monastery by the Qing Dynasty, which is also a mouthful, but very interesting that it's inspired by something like that. And from my opinion, it's kind of like a Kung Fu Dark Souls in a way, which I think is, interesting. And again, something that I don't typically play. I read that it includes over 150 unique attacks. And the coolest spin on it, which really brought me in, is when the player dies in the game, they're magically resurrected at a spot where they die, but they age several years. So as the character ages, their strikes will become more powerful, but they'll have less health. And then eventually it'll be impossible for them to revive as they get too old. And then the next death will end the entire game. So when you die, you age and come back to life. But if you die too many times, then your run's over because you can't age anymore.
Yeah, I thought it was a very clever mechanic. Very original. We live in a world where a lot of things are rinse and repeat or, just copying the games that came before. I think that's a very novel approach to handling continues, essentially. Limited continues.
Exactly. Yeah. So, just a cool concept. It's gotten rave reviews. Definitely something that I'm looking forward to playing, because I did pick it up recently and going to give it a try here soon.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool. Kind of has a John Wick vibe to it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, one-man army type thing.
Yeah. All right, cool, man. Up for me is Sniper Elite 5. So I've played all the other Sniper Elites. Not sure why I haven't picked this one up and played it yet. Because, I'll say this. Technically, I think there's really only 4 Sniper Elites. So the name of this is misleading. Because there's the original Sniper Elite. There's Sniper Elite V2 or version 2, which was essentially a remake of the first game with better graphics and gameplay. And then you had Sniper Elite 3, which in that regard would technically be Sniper Elite 2, so on and so forth. Anyway, regardless of the naming scheme, I love all the Sniper Elite games, and they're great co-op games. It's just that classic fun co-op campaign where you can play through the whole campaign co-op. Not just some little side missions or like spec op missions or a little cut, like isolated. No, the whole campaign can be played in multiplayer. And then Sniper Elite, of course, is known for its X-ray kill shots, where every once in a while, if you get a nice shot on an enemy from a long distance, it will slow down and show an X-ray view of the bullet going into their body and exiting their body and doing a bunch of damage to their internal organs. Which I love gore in video games. And my God, this is nice detailed gore if I ever saw some. And I know there's been 1,000,001 games where the setting is World War II, but I grew up with that during the heyday of that, where the original Call of Duty's, Medal of Honor, and every clone after that, and just something about it, even though it's a new game, just playing a World War II shooter just kind of has a little bit of nostalgic effect on me. Mm-hmm. So I definitely need to pick this up. Hoping there's a complete edition with all the DLC, because they tend to add a lot of additional levels and sniper rifles, so I always end up picking up the complete edition. So yeah, this is definitely on my short list of games I need to play through. And I also played through the spin-off, the zombie army games. I don't know if you played those, Mitch.
Yeah, I've not played them, but I think we had talked about potentially starting one at one point.
Yeah, I played through the first one, the second one, which admittedly they were very similar. still have to play through the third one, and then still have to play through the fourth one. But I consider that part of the Sniper Elite series.
Sure.
Since it is essentially a spin-off and uses the same game engine and mechanics and all that.
Is it called Zombie Army? Is that what it's called?
It used to be called Nazi Zombie Army, and then they changed it to just... From what I understand, they just changed it to Zombie Army after that. Yeah, now it's just Zombie Army. Man, it's just the censoring of the world, I guess. It's just too controversial to... You can have the word Nazi in it, but I mean, you're killing them. They're the enemy. Like, it's not like it's glorifying it. Like, come on, let's just
it's also like
it's cannon fodder.
It's the same scenario with like the Call of Duties nowadays. Like, there is no more Call of Duty Nazi zombies. Now it is just Call of Duty zombies.
Yeah.
Which,
what can I say, man? It's just fun shooting Nazis. Like,
yeah, I mean, that's why
is that controversial? Who are we offending? The Nazis? Like, so what?
Right. Yeah, play those new Wolfenstein games if you haven't, because, I know you have, Mike, but anybody who's listening, that's great. Nazi killing fun.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Love those Wolfenstein games. All right, man. Anyway, carrying on. What you got next?
Yep, the next one I have is a game I actually just picked up on physical because finally it went on sale for, the $40, $35 that it goes to on the Nintendo Switch, which is Kirby and the Forgotten Land. And I don't know if it's just me, but Kirby has been, kind of long forgotten in the last couple generations of games. There just haven't been as many quality Kirby titles. Maybe in the Wii they had a couple, but definitely for the Switch they haven't really released much. But they this one is kind of a resurgence of Kirby, and I mean, I remember back in the day I would go in your room at your old house, and you had your regular Nintendo hooked up, and I would go and play some of those classic Kirby games on there, and that's what really started getting me into Kirby in general. Of course, after that, Super Smash Bros. But Kirby's just like such a cool, chill character, and like these games are so relaxing and fun. They just have really fun music. They're super bright and upbeat. And then Kirby can just do the funniest things. Like in this one specifically, he could literally swallow a car and be a car, which I think is like the funniest thing ever. Like, because that's the best part of those Kirby games is like swallowing something up and then becoming it, and that was the coolest thing in Super Smash Bros. I can suck up Link, and I can turn into, I have a little Link hat on my head, and I can throw, boomerangs and bombs and whatnot. So, yeah, Kirby's just goofy fun that they create into a really solid game, and I'm actually very pumped to play this one. It seems like it has really cool bosses and like just enemies, and just a really fun world that they've created. And I don't know, Kirby's just such a funny character who doesn't have any voice lines, but he's still just like, he's still just so quality. So it's funny that he's still around after all these years, and they're creating quality games like this. When's the last Kirby game you played, Mike?
Oh, geez. Yeah, I don't think I've really played much beyond the original Kirby on the original Nintendo Entertainment System, and like you said, playing as Kirby in Super Smash Bros. But long live Kirby. Yeah, he's a mute protagonist, but he's just bursting with personality.
He sure is.
I'm digging this. I'm watching this trailer. It's very colorful. It's very bubbly. And it's just one of those happy-go-lucky Nintendo games that I feel like just puts a smile on your face when you play it. And yeah, every once in a while, I play a lot of very adult-themed games, like very violent stuff or things that cover dark topics or scary games. But every once in a while, you got to just slip in a nice family-friendly, dare I say, kids game, just to cleanse the palate and just remember the simpler days of playing, Nintendo 64, Super Nintendo. Basically, Nintendo's got it on lock, man. They have those games that can be enjoyed no matter how old you are.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Shout out to the Virtual Console as well on the Switch nowadays, because I can play a lot of those older Kirby games on Super Nintendo, regular Nintendo, N64 even nowadays. So yeah, I've been sometimes dabbling on my Switch, going back and playing some throwback Kirby as well, which is fun.
Nice. All right, man. I'm gonna speed it up a bit because going a little long in the tooth with this. I'll go ahead and knock out my remaining two, and then I'll let you knock out your final one. So next up is Scorn. So again, man, we're really shifting here, going from family-friendly Kirby right back to what I'm talking about, some very adult-themed games that are not intended for children. Scorn is kind of like a body horror, H.R. Geiger-inspired first-person shooter. And it's just the art design is so bizarre. And I love games that are just completely not based in reality and just take you to another universe, another world, to just kind of expand your mind and warp your reality when you play them. And this game, again, is very gory, very graphic. I really have no idea what the plot is about or if there even is a plot. And I'm kind of glad about that because I want to go into this game completely blind, knowing how weird it looks. So this has been on my Steam wish list long before it came out. I mean, this has been on my wish list for like years. So I'm surprised that I did not jump on this day one. But I do have
on Game Pass as well, I believe.
Yeah, and it's been on Game Pass for a long time. So really I have no excuse. This is definitely a game that was released in 2020. I was very hyped about that I still need to jump into. And then after that, continuing on with games that I've played the originals to that I need to play a sequel for is Dying Light 2, Stay Human. I loved Dying Light, played through that completely with my buddy Anthony. Just an amazing open world zombie survival game. I know they're a dime a dozen, but Dying Light really, really sucks you in and makes it feel like a living world. And yes, just like with Dead Island 1 and Dead Island Riptide, there are plenty of annoying side quests that are just like fetch quests. And I remember one time there was even, I don't remember if it was in Dead Island or Dying Light. I think it might have been in Dying Light, where they're basically trolling you, and there's a guy that keeps asking you for stuff, and I think you bring it back to him and he forgets he asked you for it, and then he's like, never mind, go get this for me instead. You bring it back to him, he's like, what? Never mind, go get this instead. I was so mad during that mission. I'm like, these developers are just trolling me right now, because this is like the fetch quest of all fetch quests that has no real purpose. Anyway, I don't remember what happens. I hope at the end of that mission you get to kill the guy, but I don't know. Anyway, loved Dying Light 1. And Dying Light 2 is another game I'm surprised that I have not played yet. So, all right, man, that's it for me. Which it was Sniper Elite 5, Scorn, and Dying Light. What is the last on your top 3 games you still need to play that were released in 2022?
Yeah, I'll round it out quickly. It's one we're both very, interested in playing at some point, and is God of War Ragnarok. From what I've been told from friends who have played the game, it is very much like the God of War that came out before it. Just kind of a continuation of the story. And while I did really enjoy the story, the gameplay, everything, that the graphics were beautiful, like everything it is. I'm kind of in a holding pattern of whether I want to go for a PS5 and play it on PS5 like in all its glory, or wait for it to come out on PC, or bite the bullet and just play it on my PS4 Pro, where I probably have just as good of an experience, if not, but the same. So that's kind of where I'm at as far as why I haven't played it yet. And and if it is a lot of the same gameplay, there are other games I want to check out that are a little bit different and not so much sequels. But I mean, from everything I've heard, it is still very good. It is God of War, and I'll get to it eventually. Where and when, I don't know, but it'll happen.
Yeah, and again, this is one that I want to play as well. I got about halfway through the first game, so I need to finish that one before I even think about diving into this one. And I probably will just bite the bullet and get a PlayStation 4 version, which I'm sure is more than adequate. Another story-rich game. And I'd mentioned to you, I watched a movie recently where the guy who's the voice actor for Kratos was in the movie, and I kind of knew what he would look like, but didn't really have his look memorized. But when I saw him in the movie, as soon as I heard his voice, I'm like, that's Kratos. That's such a distinct, iconic voice.
It really is.
It was the weirdest movie. It was like this horror comedy. Oh my gosh, what was it called? Something.
I want to Google like horror comedy Kratos.
It was Onyx the Fortuitous and the Talisman of Souls.
What a name.
Yeah, it was so goofy, man. But I watched it with the family and we thoroughly enjoyed it. It was just an off-the-wall, like, goofball horror comedy. But, segueing from that, I watched it with my family while on vacation up in Blue Ridge Mountains, Georgia. We rented a cabin to go up there and relax and be in nature. And we watched a handful of movies. And the cabin we stayed in the basement, had a game room, which a lot of Airbnbs do. They got a little spot set up that had a projector that filled up the entire wall. So we went down there. We watched a couple of movies down there. One of them, which was the Monster Hunter movie, which I didn't even know Monster Hunter had a movie until I stumbled upon it.
Oh, yeah.
Looking through films. I'm like, what? There was a movie made for Monster Hunter? Well, apparently it came out around the peak of the pandemic, so I guess it kind of just flew under my radar. And it's made by, what's his name, Wes Anderson, the same guy who does the Resident Evil movies.
Oh,
is that the director's name? Let me see. Monster Hunter movie. Oh, excuse me, not Wes Anderson. Paul W.S. Anderson. And, just like the Resident Evil movies, it's starring Mila Jovovich. And it was action-packed. I enjoyed it. It's a total popcorn movie where there's almost no plot, just pure action. And I swear the script must have been like 2 pages long because it's just no dialogue, just nonstop action. But it was definitely a great movie to watch on a huge projector. So, of course, I also hooked up my gaming PC to game on this projector. And my wife, bless her heart, she doesn't play video games that often. And when she does, it's like the greatest thing ever. So she jumped on this projector to play Warhammer 40K Kill Team with me. Now, are you familiar with this game?
What a game to make her play. No, but just by the name, what a game to make her play if she doesn't play many.
Yeah, so I mean, here's the thing. Warhammer 40K Kill Team is a twin-stick shooter. And I've gotten motion sickness playing first-person shooters on just a really big, like, flat-screen TV. So we're talking about a huge projector. I did not want to just insta-vomit the second I started playing a game. So I knew I had to play a game that had little camera movement. Mostly static camera or just, a very slow-moving camera. You couldn't do a first-person shooter. So that's why we chose Warhammer 40K Kill Team, because it's a top-down twin-stick shooter. And this game is pretty awesome. It, unfortunately, is a delisted game. And to make matters, so you can no longer get it on Steam. It was originally released on Xbox 360 and Steam. And in 2020, it got delisted from both those platforms. And unfortunately, this was a digital-only game. So there's no way to get in anymore. But I had it on my Steam list, played through it. It's a decent little twin-stick shooter. Now, I'm going to say a few things I noticed about gaming on a projector, because really up until this point, I had never done that. So projectors vary in quality. This was a good quality one, but not like some crazy 4K, super bright, extra crispy projector. So it was a bit dark, and it was a bit blurry, and the only sound was from the tiny speakers on the projector. So it kind of was a bummer because you have this huge immersive screen for movies and games, and you just got these tiny little tinny speakers only coming from the projector behind your head. And as I mentioned, motion sickness is also another factor to think about. But I did enjoy it. It was awesome. And when we were playing this game, normally a twin stick shooter, your characters are like tiny itty bitty and you kind of squinting, can't really see any detail. But blown up on a huge projector, we could see every detail and our characters were good size. So it was a lot of fun and the perfect game to play on that. There are some flaws with gaming on projectors. If it's not a laser beam projector and it's like a traditional bulb projector, you have to replace those frequently, which can get expensive. So I'm kind of, as much as I had a good time on my vacation using this for games and movies, I'm kind of on the fence on whether or not projectors are really a great experience. So Mitch, have you ever gamed on a projector? Have you ever known anybody that had one set up in maybe their man cave or something? What are your thoughts on that? Would you get one?
No, I would not get one. I think I would just settle for like a big flat screen TV over that, like the one I have currently in my living room that I just purchased recently. But I did have friends as a kid growing up that had their parents had them in their man cave, and didn't really game on them a ton as far as like my parents or like my friend's parents' place. But I did at the Willow Knolls Theater that we are very much both familiar with in our hometown. And I don't know if you wanted to go over what was going on at the Willow Knolls Theater.
Yeah, so you're talking about the mother of all projectors. You're talking about a movie theater projector. So yes, back in the day when Game Crazy, the game store, still existed. For those who don't know, it's kind of like a GameStop, but it died out long ago. In Peoria, Illinois, the Game Crazy there used to host tournaments at the Willow Knolls movie theater. And I only ever went when they were doing Halo. I don't know if they ever did any other games. And I'm talking about the original Halo, Halo 1. So they would set up 2 original Xboxes connected through a LAN connection. So it'd be 4v4. You'd have one team in one movie theater and the other team in the other movie theater. And they would hold tournaments that way. And if you won, they would give you free movie tickets. So it was a nice thing for for us to go do as kids, to just go to these tournaments and flex our Halo skills long before there was a Halo that was on Xbox Live.
Yeah, it was interesting. Like my friends and I, like when we were very young at that point, I want to say like early middle school at the latest, and like showed up there, and a lot of us, you could tell like the employees there, like all these little kids, like we don't want them really like here like doing this. They didn't bring a TV, they didn't bring a console, because like a lot of people brought their own stuff to these things too, and they were like cross-linking everything together and whatnot, but they were nice enough to let us, to enter in the tournaments and do, and play a few rounds and actually get to experience it on the big screen as well, the mother of all projectors. So yeah, really cool experience. Something that's really lost in time. Don't see that too often these days anymore, but yeah, a great time growing up for sure.
Yeah, good in-person gaming experience. Yeah. And again, this was just at the dawn of Xbox Live, so there still was a lot of people that were not gaming online, especially in the console gaming world. And I went to 2 of those tournaments. The first one we got all the way to the last round and lost. And then the second time we went back for revenge and we ended up winning. And I remember the final battle was the best 2 out of 3. So we crushed this team. And I think we were playing, what's that level? That's the long hallway in Halo 1. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, why am I blanking?
It's like two hallways side by side.
Yeah.
I can't think of the name of it. Anyway, we killed it on that map. That's like one of my favorite maps because it's just forced close combat, and it's got the I think it's got the camouflage as well. Oh, you looking it up?
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. It's not.
It's gonna bug me. Man, Halo 1.
Hang 'em High was great, but I don't think you're not talking about Hang 'em High.
No, Halo 1 had some really classic maps. That was not Hang 'em High.
It's obviously not Blood Gulch. That's been brought into Sidewinder. Infinity? Is that the one?
Man, I'm not even seeing it.
I'm not either.
I'm sure there's somebody watching this. This is like
I love Battle Creek, or what they turned into Beaver Creek at the Halo 2.
Was it longest? It was longest.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, man, we crushed them in longest, and then they signed their death wish because it was their choice. We picked that map, and then the second match, it was their pick, and they picked Blood Gulch. I'm like, y'all just messed up, man. Y'all just messed up. So we got on Blood Gulch with all of the vehicles enabled. And my team immediately got in the vehicles. And once you take control of all the vehicles on Blood Gulch, it's done. It's done. We were just going from because if you're on one side of the map, the team's going to respawn on the other side. So we were just running them over with the
tank
ghosts.
or the Warthog?
No, the ghosts, dude. They had ghosts on it. We just run them over, then they'd spawn on the other side. We zoom over, run them over, and we killed them so fast. And they were heated. They came in from the other theater like, man, y'all just spammed the ghost. You guys cheated. I'm like, hey, it's fair game, man. It is. They're in the game. They're weapons.
Right.
We use them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a good time. Good memory. I'll always remember that. All right, man. Think that about wraps it up. Anything else you want to cover before we sign off?
Nope.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining in, checking out the podcast episode. You can find all our episodes on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Where else can we be found, Mitch?
Yeah, our Twitter is at Hills Are Silent. Our Instagram is Instagram/Hills Are Silent. Our TikTok is at The Hills Are Silent Podcast. And our YouTube, again, is at The Hills Are Silent. If you have any questions, comments, anything at all, hit us up in our email inbox at hillsaresilent@gmail.com, or Spotify comments or YouTube comments, and we'll find them. And as always, we'll catch you in the next episode.